This is the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session, a weekly recap of your 2023 Phillies. Broadcasting live from Chickies and Pete's. Tonight's show is brought to you by Team Toyota, BCWSA, Fogo de Chaux, Independence Blue Cross, and Capital Grille. Now, here are your hosts, Bill Werndl and Mickey Morandini.
Welcome to the Bull Session, brought to you by Independence Blue Cross. We're here at Chickie and Pete's in Drexel Hill, and our special co-host is the great second baseman for the Philadelphia Phillies during the 1993 season, helping them get in the World Series. Of course, unfortunately, losing the Toronto Blue Jays, but Mickey, you had a great year. And our special guest, player, coach, general manager, maybe someday a manager in the big leagues, Ruben Amaro. You're shaking your head, Ruben.
I don't think anybody wants me to be a manager.
Why is that, Ruben?
That's a great question.
That was the goal, wasn't it?
It was when I became a coach, yeah. Yeah, I would love to have done it. I just don't think. I think that train has passed me by.
You're too old school.
That's correct.
Well, we really need a little bit more old school in the game of baseball, don't you think, Mickey?
Yes, we do. We absolutely do. You're not going to see it for quite a while.
But, Ruben and Mickey, do you see a trend? I mean, you see a guy like Bruce Bochy back. He's an old school manager. Do you see Buck Showalter, an old school manager? Do you see maybe the trend changing towards the philosophy you play on the gut? I mean, information's important, but you play with your gut.
I think we see some pendulum swing back the other way, but I think there's just so much information, and there's been such a tremendous takeover of the analytics piece of the game that we've lost some of the heart and soul of baseball for me personally, and I think that's one of the reasons why you have so many new rules in the game, is to try to create that heart and soul again.
Mickey, what's your feeling?
Yeah, I agree. If you've had a lot of success as a manager, you may have a chance to get back into the ball game. But other than that, I just don't see old school players or coaches coming back. I just don't. As Ruben said, there's just too much analytics in the game today, and a lot of GMs and front offices want to control what goes on the field now. So I just don't see it happening anytime soon.
Do we overload the players with information, Ruben and Mickey?
I think in this day and age, I think the players are used to having all that information. I think there are times when you just like to have a guy simplify things, and I think that's what's happening with Kevin Long. He's done a really nice job of, as the hitting coach, I think he's done a heck of a job of simplifying things. I don't know. I think more than anything else, this game is already very difficult to play. And sometimes the less information and more athletic you want to be, and the more natural you can be, I think that's important too.
Mickey?
Yeah, I just, like Ruben said, what was the question again?
About maybe going back to the old school thinking, or overloading players with too much information.
I think about 2 or 3 years ago, I think they realized that it was too much information. I really do. I think a good example is Rhys Hoskins. He was getting way too much information. He was taking a lot of first pitch fastballs, things like that. And I do think it's scaled back a little bit now, where they're trying to figure out just what is important, how much information do we want to give these guys. And as Ruben said, it's a different game now. I mean, you have guys that can play the infield, the outfield, first base. You can move them all around. We really didn't have that back in our day. You had utility infielders, or a guy that could play maybe all three outfield positions, but not a guy that could do everything on the field, and there's a lot of guys out there now that can do that.
Well, Ruben, your dad played for a guy that moved guys around. I mean, Cookie Rojas was a second baseman. Then you find him in center field, left field, third base. I mean, Mock kind of introduced this trend in baseball. And your dad, he played third, he played short, he played second. He played first on occasion. I mean, that was developed by the managers like Mock and people like that back in the day, right?
Yeah, but I think Gene Mock did it because he truly valued defense as one of the most important parts of the game. And when he had good defensive players like Cookie Rojas and my father and Bobby Wine, Bobby was more of a shortstop. He was, but when you have really good quality defensive players, I think more than anything else, he wanted to be able to get them on the field and to be able to participate because they were weapons for him defensively. I know that the year my dad won the Gold Glove in '64, I think he only played like 90-some games at shortstop. And the rest of them, or 80-some games, and the rest of them he played all over the place. And I think it was just because, Gene truly valued defense as an important part of the game, or one of the most important parts of the game. That's not necessarily the case anymore.
Mickey, a little known fact about Ruben's father. He finished 29th in the MVP voting in 1964. That's quite a tribute to your dad, Ruben.
Yeah, and he wasn't a great hitter, but he had a good offensive year that year. I think he hit like 260 something that year, and played very well defensively. And I think that was during the time when coaches and players and managers were the ones who were sort of voting on on Gold Glove awards. And so I think he was really highly respected by his peers. One of the coolest stories that I can tell you about my dad's defense was Maury Wills happened to be a guest for Tony Kubek and Joe Garagiola in a game of the week, and I happened to be watching the game of the week. It was a Saturday, I think it was a Saturday afternoon, and Maury Wills was on there, and they asked Maury Wills, who is the best shortstop of your era, and he dropped my dad's name, said Ruben Amaro, and I was in shock. When I was watching the game, the game was being played in Los Angeles. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he just said that. I think I was probably 12 or 13 years old when it happened. It was kind of neat. That was a cool story.
There's a guy, Mickey, that deserves the Hall of Fame is Maury Wills as well. He revolutionized the game with those stolen bases back in the early 60s.
Yeah, and to go on Ruben's point, I think back when I played, a lot of managers would come up, especially to like a middle infielder or a center fielder, and say, I don't care if you hit, just catch the baseball. And nowadays, I don't think they're saying that to too many players. You got to be able to hit in the big leagues now.
Yeah, I was a pretty good minor league hitter. I wasn't a great major league hitter, although I had like one or two decent pinch hit years. But had I not been able to play all three outfield positions pretty well, I frankly probably would not have spent a whole lot of time in the big leagues, especially nowadays. Just wouldn't have happened because that wasn't really valued. I could bunt a little bit, I could run a little bit, but those were things that aren't really truly valued anymore.
No.
Mickey, why do you think defense is not emphasized as much on the big league level now?
Well, I think it's going to be again now that the shift is gone away. I think when you have the shift, I mean, think about it. You didn't see a lot of diving plays anymore. I mean, because you got everybody, you cover all that ground on either the right or left-hand side. But I think the defense is going to be valued a lot more now that the shift is gone.
Ruben?
Totally agree with that. And and I understand the rules, and I think the rule changes. And I think for the most part, they've made the game better. My only issue with the rule changes is that I never felt like a sport should have to change the rules to accommodate a deficiency in the player. And so when you don't have players who really can control the bat and move the ball around the field and, try to hit in certain areas, in certain situations, when you cannot, and most players can't do that anymore, when they're not taught to be able to have bat control. And I just feel like we've accommodated the player and allowed the player's deficiency. We're changing the rules because the player can't do certain things. We're making the bases bigger so we can steal bases better because guys have no base stealing technique, even though they're faster than any of us ever were. And they're really fast. But they just don't have the technique because they don't have people who teach it, and another reason is that they don't value it. So I don't even know if they have base running coaches in the minor leagues anymore. They used to have like a base running coordinator, an outfield I don't even know if that exists. Now they probably will, because now a stolen base is important again because we've made the bases bigger, and we've also changed, the ability for the pitcher to step off enough, multiple times. So I think it's made it more fun for the fans, but I wish it would have been the players who were doing this and not necessarily the rules to accommodate a player's deficiency.
Mickey, you were taught when you were growing up not to uppercut the ball, but everybody uppercuts the ball now. Velocity off the bat. I don't care how fast the ball comes off the bat. Do you, Ruben or Mickey? I could care less. If it goes over the fence, terrific. Other than that, forget about it.
Let's say this. I would rather hit 35 jam shot singles that came off the bat at 50 miles an hour than to hit 30 line drives right to the shortstop that came off the bat at 110. So
absolutely,
it's all about getting on base. And I don't care of launch angle. I don't care how hard it came off the bat. I just want to know what the result was.
Yeah, I'm right with you, Mick. And I think the thing that's really concerned me the most about the launch angle stuff is that the actual base hit has the value of a base hit has been mitigated to the point where people don't think it's that big of a deal. Well, it is. I mean, if you start thinking about winning baseball games, I mean, think about what Gene Segura did against the St. Louis Cardinals. He threw his bat and flipped it into right field with a little roller, and it ended up getting them basically to the World Series. The base hit means something. Getting on base means something, whether it's a base hit or a double or triple or a home run, whatever the case may be. But the single means something because it extends innings, it puts pressure on the pitcher, it gives guys behind you chances to drive in runs. I believed in run production, and how do you produce runs? You either drive them in or you score them. And if you can do any of those two things with regularity, you can be a successful winning player.
Mickey, why don't more players have a better two-strike approach? Choke up on the bat a little bit, go with a pitch. Why is that almost non-existent in today's
Well, there
game?
was a stretch in baseball where people did not care if you struck out. They just didn't care. Now, for me, and I know Ruben feels the same, I was embarrassed when I struck out, especially having to go back to the dugout in Philadelphia and listen to some of the fans after you struck out. So it wasn't a big deal anymore. Putting the ball in play was not a big deal. They would rather you strike out than hit in a ground ball, double play, things like that. But the beautiful thing I see on this Phillies team, I love watching Stott, Bohm, and Marsh hit right now because they battle, they foul balls off, they make pitchers work, and that's just Stott led off the game yesterday, and it was like an 11-pitch at bat. Even though I think he made an out, it was a beautiful at bat, and it was fun to watch.
Ruben?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with what Mick said. I prided myself on not striking out and was embarrassed when I did because, I mean, you can talk to me about analytics all you want, but if you don't touch the ball, you have no chance of getting a hit or having any production at all. So, I mean, if you just touch the ball, you have a chance of getting on base somehow, whether it's soft or hard or whatever the case may be. But if the barrel doesn't hit the ball, you got no chance. That's a zero chance. Nothing. And so I don't know how that has become a thing, that it's okay to continue to have your A swing with two strikes. It's okay to miss the ball. I don't quite get that, and never will, probably.
We'll be back on the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session live from Chicky and Pete's in Drexel Hill. Our special co-host, Mickey Morandini, and of course our special guest tonight, Ruben Amaro Jr. We'll be right back.
This is the Geeter, the big boss with the big hot sauce, Jerry Blavitt.
Hi, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's. We've recently lost a Philly icon, my friend Jerry Blavitt. The Geeter with the Heater. Join us Friday, May 5th at Chicky's in South Philly, where the Geeter's Still Giving, a tribute event to the incredible Jerry Blavitt. I'll join co-host Fox 29's Bob Kelly as we honor the Geeters' life, legacy, and spirit, and we'll rock to the music of the Geeter love best. Friday, May 5th in South Philadelphia at Chickies and Pete's.
At Independence Blue Cross, we believe in giving you the tools you need to pursue your healthiest life. From premiums as low as $0 per month to health discounts and cash rewards, it pays to have coverage with Independence. With the strongest network of doctors and hospitals in the region and free 24/7 virtual doctor visits, you can feel confident that quality care is always within reach. Learn more about your coverage options at ibx.com.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
There really is nothing like a home team advantage. That's why Team Toyota makes a great choice for your next vehicle purchase or service. With our MVP pricing guarantee, teammate rewards program, and streamlined customer experience, our award-winning operation ensures that you can trust our process. A home team advantage is nothing without the community. Our employees are part of our family, part of your town, and we're all part of the team. We're always here for you at one of our 3 locations in Princeton, Langhorne, and Glen Mills, or at teamtoyota.net.
If you're looking for a stylish and sophisticated fine dining experience, visit your Eddie V's Prime Seafood restaurant near King of Prussia. Eddie V's Seafood features an abundant selection of fine wines and curated cocktails to complement exquisite steaks and seafood made from the highest quality ingredients. In the V Lounge, sip on imaginative handcrafted cocktails with attitude while enjoying signature appetizers. Conveniently located between I-276 and I-76 near the King of Prussia Mall. Call them today, 610-337-7823 to schedule your night out for Eddie V's Prime Seafood.
We now return to the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session. Once again, here are your hosts, Bill Werndl and Mickey Morandini.
Welcome back to the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session, live from Chickie and Pete's in Drexel Hill with our special co-host, Mickey Morandini, and our special guest, Ruben Amaro Jr. Gentlemen, Bryce Harper looks like he'll be in the lineup tomorrow night. Your reaction?
Yay.
Yay. All right.
Yay. I mean, everybody's talking about, I hope they're not bringing him back they're not going to bring Bryce Harper back too early if he's not ready. I think their biggest concern was really his sliding, his head-first sliding, and once he got approval, the okay to do that, he's going to be fine. He's going to go out there. Man, does he deepen this lineup. Oh, I mean, you put him in the third hole now, and wow, they're gonna score some runs. That's for sure. I'm really excited he's back.
Ruben,
it's astonishing. To me, it's astonishing for him to get to the point where he's playing within 5 months after that surgery. I mean, it's a modern miracle. But he is a guy. Someone told me an amazing story about him that his body recuperates like nobody else's in the world. He got hit by a pitch one day and, got smoked by like a 95-mile-an-hour fastball on his ankle, and he told, one of his coaches, hey, don't worry, I'll be, my body doesn't bruise. And they were like, what? So the next day they looked at his ankle, and he literally had no marks on it, no inflammation, no nothing. It was actually a story that Rob Thompson was talking. The guy is like Superman. It's crazy. But for him to come back this quickly, pretty astonishing. And Mickey's right. There's no way in God's green earth that they would allow the Phillies, with the amount of investment that they have in him and how important he is to the club, they would not allow him to be on a step on the field unless he was absolutely ready to go. And I will tell you that I watched him take BP maybe 2 weeks ago when they were on the road, and we were in Cincinnati, and just before they went on the road in Philly. He was hitting balls out of the world. I mean, so the guy has got no restriction in his elbow right now. It's amazing.
Ruben and Mickey, head first slides. I know Pete Rose modernized it when he broke into baseball, but a lot of teams do not like their players going head first. I think Rob Thompson, when he was a coordinator with the Yankees, would not allow the players in the Yankee system to go in head first. What are your guys' feelings about the head first slide? I think it's dangerous, to be honest with you.
Well, it's fun to watch. I know that. I slid head first occasionally, but I did it at certain times when I had to maybe like avoid a tag, like a hook slide type of head first slide, or I knew there was no danger. I didn't do it at home plate ever, not at first base ever. Usually stealing bases, I'd go in feet first, but like on a double or triple when you know it's going to be close, I'd go head first. But I don't know how dangerous it really is. I mean, you watch these guys today, they put those gloves on their hands. I don't even know how they do that. It should be illegal.
I agree with
because that
you.
glove is probably 3 inches longer than your hand, and you're getting into the base before your hand even touches it. But they're so protected now when they do things at the plate and on the bases. So head first slide doesn't bother me.
Ruben?
So there was a rule when I was a GM that was implemented about the oven mitts that they couldn't be more than like 2 or 3 inches longer than your fingers because obviously it gives them a competitive advantage. But baseball now wants stolen bases, so they're allowing, I mean, it's like the wild, wild west now. So I'm okay with those guys protecting themselves. My concern is at home plate, and the rules have changed so dramatically at home plate that it's not changed the game for the better, but you can't ever make contact with anybody anymore. There's no collisions at home plate almost ever. So I understand why certain guys do go head first. I would never recommend that a player go head first into home plate just because if I'm a catcher, I would crush that person. And I would be taught to do that. Even giving him a lane and then stepping across and then I would take my foot or shin guard or knee or whatever right into the player because everybody's kind of sliding past it and tagging, So, I mean, I don't mind head first slides. I did head first slides when I stole, when I was stealing. And like Mickey said, in certain situations, you're trying to stretch a single and a double and a triple. But, I think it's something that people should make good choices when they're doing it because it can be dangerous, although not so much nowadays because there's so many restrictions on being able to make contact with a runner.
Mickey, you had a couple of questions for Ruben about the rule changes.
Well, obviously, we've seen rules changes for maybe like the last 3 years maybe. Which ones do you like and which ones do you dislike?
The jury's still out on the no shift. I mean, I like the idea of not shifting. My only concern about that, as I talked about before, is that there was a time, I was talking to a lot of scouts, that the hitters are actually starting hitting against the shift, so they were getting hits and doing things. And, for MLB to change that, I think it's counterintuitive. That said, I think it does create a little bit more action on the field because it starts to value that hit again. Hopefully they take that away and they realize that base hits mean something, and then you can go play wherever you want. I think the best one for me is the pitch timer. I think it's the single best rule that they put in place. I think it makes the game crisp. I think the players are now getting used to it. My only concern about that is whether or not the pitchers are going to be able to, over the course of the starting pitchers, over the course of time, will be able to handle it physically, to be able to pitch in deeper into games, which is what we're looking for our starters to do, because I think physically they may not be prepared to be able to get through that summertime and be able to throw 100 pitches or 112 pitches or whatever the case may be, to be able to get into the 6th and 7th inning more consistently. So I do like the pitch timer. I think it's making the game more crisp. I don't necessarily have a feeling one way or another about the bases. I do get a little concerned about the fact that there's a limit to the pitcher's ability to disengage with the rubber. I think that's taking it a little too far. I don't care for that one. But if I was going to pick one, it'd be the pitch timer. I think that's the best rule that's been implemented.
All right, what about the stupid rule they keep in there, the ghost runner at second base to start the 10th inning? I mean, that is awful. Go a couple innings.
How do you feel about it?
It's stupid.
So as a broadcaster, I love it because it gets me out of the studio faster. I get home faster. Speeds up the game. As a baseball person, I think it's unnecessary.
Nicky, what do you think?
Let me put it that way.
Well, there's two. Yeah, it's working. You don't see any 20-inning ball games anymore, so it is working.
No.
There's two I don't like. I don't like the 3-pitch minimum for relievers. I guess if I was a batter in today's game, I'd love it, but I don't like that. It takes away the lefty specialist, the righty specialist, that type. The manager, maneuver and pinch hit and things like that. And I don't like the minimum throw over twice. I just think that's ridiculous. You already made the bases bigger. Now we're even giving them a bigger advantage. Ricky Henderson and Vince Coleman and Lou Brock, they would steal 200 bases with these new rules this year.
You know what I hate? And maybe I'm an old timer.
Maybe.
I am an old timer. All right. The DH. I do not like the DH. Ruben, you were in both leagues. I don't like it. Mickey, what do you feel about the DH as well?
Well, I like the where the manager had to make some decisions. 6th, 7th inning, starters going strong, tight ball game. Do I take them out? Do I pinch hit for them? Do I double switch? Those types of things. That was baseball to me, So I don't like the DH, but it really was getting to the point where pitchers couldn't bunt anymore. They couldn't put the ball in play because they don't hit in high school anymore, and they don't hit in the minor leagues anymore, and they don't hit in college anymore. And all of a sudden they got to come to the big leagues, and now they got to swing a bat. So I think it had to be done, but no, I don't like it.
Ruben?
Ditto on that answer. I don't care for it. I know it's a necessity now because apparently the pitchers can't do two things. Yet they claim to be great athletes. I like the fact that there was a decision that had to be made at least once or twice a game by a manager that would change the course of the game. And now you just plug and play, man. You put 9 guys out there and let them go, and then take the pitcher out when he gets tired, and usually in the 4th or 5th inning. I wish there was more strategy to the game, but I do understand the fact that, you're talking about just throwing it out there right now with no real, someone who can't really handle the bat. Nobody values the bunt. That's just not a part of the game that means anything to anyone anymore, and this is where we've devolved to.
I remember playing, not playing one day, and I'm trying to guess along with the manager. The second baseman's the 8-hole hitter that day, and I'm on the bench. I got to be ready to go in case they double switch. You don't have to do that on the bench anymore. You either start or you pretty much don't play.
I was a pinch bunter for Jim Fergosi. I would come in and pinch bunt, and that was my job, and I did it very well. I was a good bunter.
You were a good bunter.
I could sacrifice bunt, and I could do it against the very tough pitchers.
Right-handed and left-handed.
Correct. And that kept me on the team. And it was valuable because I could bunt so that Lenny Dykstra or Mickey Morandini or somebody else could drive a run in.
It's amazing. When I watch guys attempting to bunt today, it's like a joke. It looks like matadors in the bull ring. It's unbelievable. It really is. That's part of the game. That's part of the game what made the game. Bunting, the hit and run. That was really all very special when you put that in motion. Right?
Haven't seen a hit and run in probably 10 years.
Remember when you used to fake a bunt?
Yep.
The third baseman would come way in, and then you could just slap
put
one
your
by
boy
him.
Play. Yeah. Put your boy play.
Don't see that anymore.
Right. It's amazing. It's incredible. Let's talk about the Phillies right now. They're on a roll. 2 out of 3 from the Mariners. 2 out of 3 from Houston. They go into Los Angeles tonight with the Dodgers. Harper tomorrow. What do you expect, guys?
Yeah, they're playing good. Their starting pitching is pitching very well. They're starting to go a little deeper in the games, thank goodness. And the bullpen's been just lights out. And if Suarez comes back and they move Strom into the bullpen, you got 3 lefties that just will blow by people. It's going to be exciting. But getting Harper back, it's everything's looking up. That's for sure.
Yeah, for me, it's an exciting time to be a Philadelphia fan because you're going to see some really, really good things. I think Mickey hit it right on the head. I believe in pitching. And if your pitching's going well, you'll have success. I don't think, in my estimation, that the pitching was really ready, neither the starters nor the relievers, for the season, and they are basically working themselves. This first month was their spring training, and they've gotten to the point at the end of this past month in April to where their sharpness and their command and their control and all of those things have finally come full circle, and now you're going to see some pretty special things from this team. And it doesn't take a genius. When the pitching started turning around, that's when the team turned around. It's going to be a good offensive team. It's going to happen. It's deep. The young kids are playing really well. You don't even have Schwarber or Turner swinging the bat all that well. But you're getting these young kids, as Mick said, Stott, Marsh, Bohm. These guys can hit, man. And these guys are carrying them in a lot of ways. The bottom of the lineup in some ways is carrying them. But to me, it's about the pitching coming around, and they've been really sharp.
Yeah, Ruben brings up a good point, and I talked to Tommy Green about this. He said when we were in spring training back in the 90s, those starting pitchers at least 2, maybe 3 times leading up would throw 100 pitches. And I think Nola and Wheeler and those guys, I think they got to 60 maybe their last start.
Yep.
And Ruben's exactly right. They were not ready to pitch a big league game in the regular season yet. They just weren't ready.
And I think part of that was, and I mentioned this, I said something about it being a hangover from last year, and this is what I meant. That many of these guys, in fact, none of the starting pitchers had ever pitched that late into the season.
Right.
So I think they're trying to figure out, how are they going to manage their workloads to prepare them for the early part of the season and to get them through September, October, and November for 2023. And I think that was sort of a learning curve for these guys, and they've hung in there, and that's one of the reasons why we started so slow, is that we just did not, our pitching was not very good, and wasn't sharp, wasn't ready. And that's a sort of a product of trying to figure out whether Caleb Cotham knew how they wanted to manage them, to have them be ready, and yet it's kind of a fine line, manage their workload so that in September and October they're ready to go and to perform.
Great stuff. Well, we got to take a break on the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session. We have to thank a couple of great people, Fogo de Chao, Ventresca's, and Eddie V's Seafood. Great people. That's promotional considerations for those 3 people because they're wonderful, wonderful individuals. We'll be back on the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session from Chicky and Pete's in Drexel Hill with Mickey Morandini, our special guest, Ruben Amaro.
This is the Geeter, the big boss with the big hot sauce, Jerry Blavitt.
Hi, it's Pete from Chicken Pete's. We recently lost a Philly icon, my friend Jerry Blavitt. The Geeter with the Heater. Join us Friday, May 5th at Chickies in South Philly, where the Geeter's Still Giving, a tribute event to the incredible Jerry Blavitt. I'll join co-host Fox 29's Bob Kelly as we honor the Geeter's life, legacy, and spirit, and we'll rock to the music that the Geeter loved best. Friday, May 5th in South Philadelphia at Chickies and Pete's.
At Independence Blue Cross, we believe in giving you the tools you need to pursue your healthiest life. From premiums as low as $0 per month to health discounts and cash rewards, it pays to have coverage with Independence. With the strongest network of doctors and hospitals in the region and free 24/7 virtual doctor visits, you can feel confident that quality care is always within reach. Learn more about your coverage options at ibx.com.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chao. Fogo de Chao awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chao, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
SEPTA offers a variety of career opportunities. Our core business is transit, and with 5 modes of service, we rely on and need operators, engineers, and conductors. But it takes a host of other specialties, including mechanics, electricians, plumbers, masons, painters, carpenters, welders, and more to keep the system moving. As an employee, you will earn competitive compensation and great benefits, including medical, dental, prescription, and a pension. Visit jobs.septa.org to apply today. That's jobs.septa.org.
If you're looking for a stylish and sophisticated fine dining experience, visit your Eddie V's Prime Seafood restaurant near King of Prussia. Eddie V's Seafood features an abundant selection of fine wines and curated cocktails to complement exquisite steaks and seafood made from the highest quality ingredients. In the V Lounge, sip on imaginative handcrafted cocktails with attitude while enjoying signature appetizers. Conveniently located between I-276 and I-76 near the King of Prussia Mall. Call them today, 610-337-7823 to schedule your night out for Eddie V's Prime Seafood.
We now return to the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session. Once again, here are your hosts, Bill Werndl and Mickey Morandini.
We are back on the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session, live from Chicky and Pete's in Drexel Hill. Now it's time. Each week during the Phillies season, we'll name a different Independence Blue Cross Live Fearless Player of the Week. This week's Live Fearless Player of the Week is one and only Aaron Nola with that great performance against the Astros the other night. Start living fearless today by going to www.ibx.com. A note for next week. The Bull Session will be in Audubon, Pennsylvania. And Dan Baker's special guest is a guy that both of you guys know very well, Bobby Wine. So Bobby will be Dan Baker's special guest next week in Audubon, PA. Ruben, about pitching. I mean, this 100-pitch limit they have. I never saw Warren Spahn's arm fall off or Juan Marichal's arm fall off. I mean, and these guys pitched a number of years in the big leagues. Are we babying these guys way too much? Mickey as well.
I think that the biggest thing about what's happened with pitching is the fact that the players are no longer being conditioned to pitch long enough. When I was a GM, I always felt like it was important for all of my starters at all levels to build up to the point where they were, after their third or fourth start, or second or third start, to be able to throw 100 pitches, at least. Because I believe in muscle memory. I believe if you don't train to be able to do that, then you'll never do it. And the expectation becomes lower and lower. Now there's an expectation for guys just to throw 5 innings or 4.5 innings, and that's all they, people think that is, viewed as a quality start nowadays. To me, that puts so much heat on your staff, on your bullpen, when you start having to have your bullpen, pitch the 45% or 40% of the innings during the course of the season. You're putting your team in a grave bit of danger, as far as I'm concerned, and you're basically, you're basically allowing for mediocrity. I believe in trying to get them stretched out, make sure that they, have at least an opportunity to pitch them 6 or 7 innings, and then let your bullpen take over. It's one of the reasons. It doesn't take a genius. All you got to do is watch baseball and see that the teams that have success basically have a solid starting staff that can eat up innings, and then which allows your bullpen to be utilized in the proper way it should be utilized. It's what happened with the Phillies in the early part of the season. Guys weren't getting through the third or fourth inning, and then you had, 7 innings to cover, or 6 innings to cover, and when you start doing that, then it just blows out your arms, and you're not utilizing them in spots where they should be utilized, which is, your best ones in the 7th, 8th, and 9th. And so I think it's just a conditioning thing, and I also think it's a fear issue. I believe that either a player's going to break or not break. He either has the anatomy and the mechanics that is good enough for him not to break, and if he doesn't, great, build him up. If he's gonna break, he's gonna break. It's just, and I think part of it is that the whole driveline thing has created a situation where people are maximizing every time they throw the baseball. The art of throwing a baseball is probably the most unnatural thing you can do in all of sports. And if you have to, because you're working over, it doesn't take a genius, it's mechanics and physics. You're working over an axis, and you're basically, your arm's not built to do this. And if you don't train it to be able to do that multiple times, and you end up training it to do it at a maximum velocity, then you're begging your arm to break.
I'm going to tell you one thing that I don't think should be in baseball, and you guys may jump all over it: weightlifting in weight rooms. I think this is detrimental to baseball players because for years they would run line to line, the pitchers. These guys lifting weights, I think they really jeopardize these guys. What do you think, Mickey?
Yeah, I think they do a little bit too much of that. You don't see the conditioning that you used to see in the past, for sure. We lifted weights when we played. No, it wasn't to build big muscles. It was to maintain strength. Because I know when I played, I started the year around 175, and by mid-August I was about 150. So I needed to do something to maintain my weight. But especially for pitchers, I know they used to do light weights to keep the strength in the shoulders, some arm bands, and that was it. The rest of it was condition those legs. But on Ruben's point, I think two things with the pitching. One, every pitcher pretty much is max effort now. You know, you don't have your guy. When you go to these showcases now for young kids, it's not, hey, this guy can pinpoint his fastball. It's how hard can he throw. That's all they look at. And secondly, analytics says, we all know it, third time through the lineup. Oh, boy, they're going to hit you third time through the lineup, right? Back in the day, the hitters told us when the pitcher should come out. If they start barreling balls up in the 6th and 7th inning, all right, the starters had enough. But if they're still getting bad swings and not putting the ball in play hard, 6th, 7th inning, that starter stayed out there until they did.
Yeah, the reason why the whole thing about third time through is because pitchers are not pitching. There are very few pitchers that are pitching. They're just throwing. And once their velocities start to dip and their stuff doesn't spin as well, it's easier to hit.
Right.
But if you can pitch and you can pinpoint and you can quadrant up the strike zone, then you don't have to throw all that hard. Jamie Moyer was a perfect example of that because he could throw 2 miles an hour and still get people out because he could change speeds, he can change, he can put the ball where he wants to, and he can get guys to miss-hit the baseball. And that's the key to hitting, to me, or the key to pitching. How many times and how well can you have a hitter miss-hit the ball? And if you can pitch and you can utilize and break up the quadrants of the strike zone, I mean, hitting's a hard thing to do. If you can do that consistently, then you can have success, and you can get through 7 times through the lineup.
Mickey, isn't this true that many good pitchers get better as the game goes on? Because they're now using all their pitches. Maybe in the first couple innings, Ruben and Mickey, they'd use a fastball. Then they would go to a curveball more often. Then late in the game, they would use the whole repertoire. But that doesn't happen anymore.
Not a lot. I mean, you still have your pitchers that do it. You have your great pitchers, the Verlanders, Wheelers, those type of pitchers that just have great stuff. Scherzer.
And Nola can do it.
Yeah.
Nola can do it.
But, it's, Kurt Schilling was one of the best pitchers I ever played behind. And he threw hard, but my God, he put the ball wherever he wanted to put ball. He studied hitters. He knew their strengths. He knew their weaknesses. And he studied the game. He knew what pitch he wanted to throw to every batter in every situation, and he could do it. He accomplished what he wanted to do.
Maybe I'm old school. I used to like when the pitchers, the next day, whether facing the Mets, the Braves, the pitcher for the next day would be charting pitches in the dugout or behind home plate. I used to like that because that guy gets a real feel about the lineup he's going through. Do you agree with me, Ruben?
Yeah, I think that's important. There's different ways to chart and to be able to see some of these things and to see tendencies, but there's nothing, and it's one of the things I really like about what the Phillies do as a team. There's always people on the bench. When I coached with the Mets, everybody was underneath in the video room watching the game from the video room. I believe in sitting there and watching the pitcher and watching the game and understanding, okay, what are the strengths of this guy? What pitch is he going to go to when he needs one? I think those types of communications are so vital, and they bring a team together. And in my estimation, that was one of the biggest reasons why the Phillies had so much success last year, is because they worked together. And I think Kyle Schwarber was a perfect example of one of those guys who was kind of galvanizing that unity. And there's nothing more important than when a team is together, working together, talking about things, communicating. And I think starting pitchers should do the same when they're observing the games.
All right, we got to take a quick break on the Bull Session, live from Chicky and Pete's, brought to you by Independence Blue Cross. Jim Archidakano is listening to this show on WBCB, a great listener. Now remember, next week with Dan Baker and Mickey Morandini, we'll have Bobby Wine as our special guest from Audubon, PA. Let's take a quick break and we're right back.
This is the Geeter, the big boss with the big hot sauce, Jerry Blavitt.
Hi, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's. We recently lost a Philly icon, my friend Jerry Blavitt. The Geeter with the Heater. Join us Friday, May 5th at Chickies in South Philly, where the Geeter's Still Giving, a tribute event to the incredible Jerry Blavitt. I'll join co-host Fox 29's Bob Kelly as we honor the Geeter's life, legacy, and spirit, and we'll rock to the music of the Geeter loved best. Friday, May 5th in South Philadelphia at Chickies and Pete's.
At Independence Blue Cross, we believe in giving you the tools you need to pursue your healthiest life. From premiums as low as $0 per month to health discounts and cash rewards, it pays to have coverage with Independence. With the strongest network of doctors and hospitals in the region and free 24/7 virtual doctor visits, you can feel confident that quality care is always within reach. Learn more about your coverage options at ibx.com.
A truly unique dining experience awaits you at Fogo de Chão. Fogo de Chão awes patrons with their history and tradition of authentic Brazilian steakhouse, offering many cuts of decadent fire-roasted meats prepared over an open fire and served tableside by trained gaucho chefs. Fogo de Chão, 1337 Chestnut Street in Center City, Philadelphia. For reservations, go to www.fogo.com or call 215-636-9700.
There really is nothing like a home team advantage. That's why Team Toyota makes a great choice for your next vehicle purchase or service. With our MVP pricing guarantee, teammate rewards program, and streamlined customer experience, our award-winning operation ensures that you can trust our process. A home team advantage is nothing without the community. Our employees are part of our family, part of your town, and we're all part of the team. We're always here for you at one of our 3 locations in Princeton, Langhorne, and Glen Mills, or at teamtoyota.net.
If you're looking for a stylish and sophisticated fine dining experience, visit your Eddie V's Prime Seafood restaurant near King of Prussia. Eddie V's Seafood features an abundant selection of fine wines and curated cocktails to complement exquisite steaks and seafood made from the highest quality ingredients. In the V Lounge, sip on imaginative handcrafted cocktails with attitude while enjoying signature appetizers. Conveniently located between I-276 and I-76 near the King of Prussia Mall. Call them today, 610-337-7823 to schedule your night out for Eddie V's Prime Seafood.
We now return to the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session. Once again, here are your hosts, Bill Werndl and Mickey Morandini.
We are back on the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session, live from Chicky and Pete's in Drexel Hill. Our special guest is Ruben Amaro, and of course, the man of the hour is Mickey Morandini, who's co-hosting this show. Mickey and Ruben, you have to beat up on the bad teams in every sport. And the Phillies have taken advantage of that early on in the season. I mean, they stubbed their toe a little bit when the pitching wasn't there, but now they're starting to beat up on those weak sisters, aren't they?
Yeah, you got to. You got to. We were just talking about this. You beat up on the bad teams and you play 500 against the good teams. You're a playoff team. And unfortunately, there's a lot of good teams in the National League this year. Our division's as tough as any division. Marlins are playing great baseball. Washington's a team we got to beat up on. Maybe Arizona, maybe Colorado you got to beat up on. But a lot of bad teams in the American League. Oakland, Kansas City, a couple other teams out there that are really struggling. But, yeah, you got to beat up on the bad teams. And the Phillies are really, really good team. There's no reason that they should not beat up on those bad teams, and they were great at it last year.
Ruben, he mentioned the Oakland A's. They've got to get out of Oakland. They got to get to Vegas because this is an embarrassment for the game of baseball, isn't it?
You said it. It's an embarrassing franchise, and it should never get to the point where your team literally has absolutely no chance of winning, and they're fielding basically a Double-A ball club out there, and it is a little embarrassing. And I'm glad that they're leaving. I hope that they go to Vegas. I know they've been crying poverty for a long time. There's other teams that don't have high payrolls, like Tampa Bay, that have had a lot of success. I think that you can have success if you draft and develop the right players, which the Baltimore Orioles have done and created a great buzz there in Baltimore. They have an excellent manager in Hyde. I think that they have good baseball people in place. But they've drafted extremely well, and they have a pitching coach named, I think it's Hoyt, who's also done a heck of a job with their staff. It means a lot, and Tampa Bay is another example. Everybody talks about them being so brilliant analytically. That's not why they're good. They're good because they draft, they trade for the right players, they draft and develop pitching better than anybody in baseball, and they have a very consistent development plan. And when their guys come to the major leagues, they know how to play baseball, and they play winning baseball, and that's the reason why they're so good.
All right, Mickey, you're a former player, and so is Ruben. Should there be a floor on how much a team has to spend every year?
Well, if you're going to put a floor, I guess you got to put a ceiling too, don't you? So, no, let's just keep it like it is, and look at the Pirates right now. My God, they're 20-8 or 20-9, playing super baseball. Hopefully that continues, except when they play us, obviously. But there's a lot of low payroll teams out there right now that are playing really good baseball, and there's a lot of teams with high payrolls that aren't very good teams. So no, I think you got to keep it the way it is.
Ruben, what do you think?
Well, the only way they're going to do a floor is if they get a if they actually have a ceiling, and that's never going to happen in the game. I think that Major League Baseball has put a little heat and pressure, little thumb pressure on some of the teams that have not spent money to spend money to try to compete. I think that they've sort of incentivized that a little bit by giving some love to some of these teams that are allowing guys to get to the big leagues quicker. Rather than hold them back because of their Major League service time and such. So I think there's some things that Major League Baseball is trying to do. I do believe that it's set up such that, and I don't think it's necessarily fair. I understand why they originally did it, but when you're set up to have an organization never pick in the top 10, even though it's having success at the Major League level, I think that creates a cycle that is not all that great. Now, the Los Angeles Dodgers done a great job of being able to handle that cycle better than anybody because they keep drafting the right players and developing the right players and bringing them to the major leagues. And so they're burning the candle at both ends. I do think that there is a way to set up the draft, and they've started to do this with a lottery where, you're not necessarily incentivizing teams to tank and to be terrible. And I think that's an important element here, and I think that needs to be tweaked a little bit. I think it'll continue to be tweaked so that there's not an incentive for teams just to tank. I think that's fair to the fans, and I don't necessarily think that's going to create success unless you really have good scouts and good player development people. And if you don't have them, it doesn't matter how much you tank.
And tanking in baseball, I think, is really stupid because it's hit or miss in the baseball draft. I mean, when you're drafting a first-round basketball player or a first-round football player, very rarely do they not have an impact on the game at the pro level. But in baseball, it doesn't matter who you're drafting. It's hit or miss. And I think we've seen that in Philadelphia. I mean, we've drafted high school kids that didn't make it to Double-A, and then we've drafted high school kids that, like Abel and Painter, that they're on the verge of being stars in the big leagues. we've drafted college players that didn't make it to past double A, and we've drafted some that, like Hoskins and those types of guys, Stott, that are going to be superstars. So it's hit or miss in baseball.
How difficult, Ruben, is it to identify talent in baseball? I mean, the one thing that bothers me about the college and high school is those damn aluminum bats. I mean, I don't think you get a real good read on a hitter and even a pitcher. Am I right about that?
I mean, that's one of the reasons why scouting is so important, and having people who have had experience in scouting important. Nowadays, they're sending out, there's a lot of very young people who don't really know the game, who are going off of, analytics things that they're seeing from players, bat speed and that kind of stuff, but they don't have the experience of, okay, I've seen this type of player before. I know that he's going to have trouble doing X, Y, and Z as he has to advance through the minor leagues or to get to the major leagues. And so scouting is it's a very difficult thing. It's pretty darn arbitrary. And but at the same time, there is an art to it that I think has been mitigated, and that's one of the reasons, why some teams have a very difficult time producing quality players. You got to have good scouting. I talked to Pat Gillick about this for years and years and years. The most important thing an organization can have is good scouts, because they are the ones who are bringing the talent to your organization. If you have good scouts bringing quality players to your organization, you got a chance to have a lot of success.
Mickey, what round were you drafted in? You were in a high draft pick. Fifth round. And you had to work your way up because you weren't one of those high-priced guys, right?
Well, nobody was high-priced back when I got drafted. I mean, really, the first rounders made some good money, but after that, if I was a fifth rounder nowadays, I'd probably make six figures signing bonus. But, I was a shortstop, and I had really good scouting because when I got to AAA, they decided I didn't have the arm strength to play shortstop, and they moved me to second base. And I'm telling you right now, that got me to the big leagues a heck of a lot faster than a shortstop would.
And you look at Bryson Stott, who moved from shortstop to second base. That was a good move by the Phillies, wasn't it?
Oh, great move. Bringing in Turner was one of the best things they could have done. And Stott has done a great job at second base. I watched him play against Houston. He made some great plays out there. He looks comfortable. It's not easy going from shortstop to second base. It's a little more difficult than you would think, especially turning the double play. And he's been great out there.
Well, Ruben, we have to put a bow on this show. Mickey, we have to put a bow on this show tonight. But I really appreciate Mickey Morandini, our special co-host tonight. We'll be co-hosting next week with Dan Baker in Audubon, PA. Special guest will be Bobby Wine. And, of course, Ruben Amaro, you have double duty or triple duty tonight. You'll be doing Comcast pre- and post-game show. Then you're on WIP tomorrow morning. This guy's a tireless worker. Until next week on the Bull Session, I'm Bill Werndl, along with Mickey Morandini and Ruben Amaro Jr. See you later.
You've been listening to the Independence Blue Cross Bull Session. Tonight's show is an exclusive